Dear friends, greetings and best wishes. I am Georgos Adalis, and I would like to thank the Republican Party, the Greece chapter, as well as its president, Mr. Jonathan Constantine, for the honor of inviting me to speak at this conference. Today, I will focus on a rather difficult topic that unfortunately has been taking on dimensions far different from what it should. Our subject is wokeism, as well as the ESG movement, green development, and the NGOs as a whole, as these are perceived under a common framework by many citizens who believe they are separate issues. What I just mentioned are not separate matters. In essence, they are one and the same. What someone chooses to call them is another matter entirely. We must begin by saying that what we now call woke agenda initially began with raising awareness on social, environmental, and economic issues. While it started with good intentions, by the early 2010s, it began to lose its original purpose. What started with noble goals evolved into a consolidated issue that essentially subjugated not only businesses, but entire nations, and eventually failed. Many countries have been affected by this system, and I've selected a few to use as examples so we can better understand what has been created. The so-called woke agenda generally refers to issues such as gender equality, minority rights, climate change, and social justice. The ESG movement, environmental, social, and governance, developed into an activist force aiming to fulfill these three core goals. They never hid this. The environmental part targeted reducing CO2 emissions, promoting renewable energy sources, and managing natural resources. The social pillar aimed at reevaluating equality, diversity, labor rights, and support for marginalized groups. The governance pillar focused on transparency, anti-corruption efforts, and ethical management, according to their standards. By 2024, the ESG movement was managing capital estimated at $40 trillion globally, according to studies cited in Bloomberg and by NGOs like Greenpeace, Amnesty International, and WWF. But this didn't just concern companies. It spread to governments. Until mid-2024, ESG had ballooned into a massive investment model, so much so that if a business or state didn't meet its criteria, it couldn't easily access credit or investment capital. By the summer of 2024, this began to reverse. A counter-movement emerged that questioned not just ESG's usefulness, but its real objectives. Investment capital began flowing into alternatives, including fossil fuels, and away from ESG-oriented funds. That year alone, these anti-ESG capital flows grew by 13%. Take Australia, for example. In 2022, it introduced legislation promoting a transition from coal to renewables under the pretext of protecting indigenous sacred lands. While this led to some new jobs and legal changes limiting extraction, it also caused serious economic disruption. Some claim this legislation boosted GDP, but that's not true. Any slight rise in GDP was due to other causes. In fact, Australia's mining industry, which contributes 10% to GDP, fiercely opposed the legislation and labeled it economically harmful. Kenya is another case. The Greenbelt movement, founded by Wangari Maathai, promoted reforestation and women's empowerment under ESG's social and environmental pillars. While this led to 50 million trees being planted and around 30,000 women gaining jobs, it also caused social unrest, especially in conservative communities with rigid gender roles. In Poland, an EU-funded NGO called Bankwatch Network proposed a Green Deal-based transition away from coal. €2 billion were allocated for retraining workers, with 30% of new roles targeting women and minorities. Despite good intentions, this caused significant backlash and deep societal polarization. Similar issues occurred in Greece. World Wildlife Fund in 2023 proposed building wind farms and retraining lignite workers in Western Macedonia, just like in Poland. The result? Public outcry and social tension. We not only failed to deliver positive outcomes, but we also undermined both the local economy and social fabric. NGOs like ActionAid also proposed including Roma and migrants in environmental programs like recycling and waste management. The outcome remains unclear, with little evidence of lasting benefit. Meanwhile, Greece has committed to shutting down all lignite plants by 2028, backed by €5 billion from the EU's Just Transition Fund, even though we clearly lack energy self-sufficiency, and this policy threatens our energy security. At the same time, NGOs promoting the agenda also advocate for legislation on matters like same-sex adoption. They claim such laws could raise GDP by 1.5% annually, an argument that has seduced some economic circles. Their logic? that a new rainbow economy would emerge, with specialized stores catering to LGBT individuals. But this is wishful thinking. LGBT people already consume products. They just buy from general stores. Creating specialized shops doesn't increase overall consumption. It just redistributes it. Their studies are amateurish and flawed. The idea that consumption drives GDP growth in this context is theoretical at best and practically negligible. Moreover, these same groups point to GDP growth in liberal countries and claim it's due to expanded rights. But that's not true. Those countries grew because of strong preconditions and global economic momentum, not because of passing LGBT rights legislation. A key turning point came in the summer of 2024, a pre-election period in the U.S. with Trump on one side and Biden still uncertain about running. Biden eventually withdrew, and Kamala Harris became the candidate. During this time, a massive shift occurred. BlackRock, the leading ESG investment firm, appointed Amin Nasser, former CEO of Saudi Aramco, to its board. That was a game changer. Aramco, seen as the dirtiest oil company in the world, is worth around $1.36 trillion, far more than ExxonMobil's $450 billion. This appointment signaled that ESG was no longer untouchable. Major asset managers, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, collectively managing $30 trillion, began to shift course. Following this, 14 major U.S. cities, banks, including J.P. Morgan, Citi, and Bank of America, agreed to restart funding for nuclear energy. Why? Because even states like Texas and California had started shutting down nuclear plants, causing massive power outages in winter. Reinvesting in nuclear and fossil fuels became necessary. The ESG movement lost momentum. Major NGOs closed or distanced themselves from ESG affiliations. Even the world's top tech companies, the Magnificent Seven, started investing in nuclear energy. 2 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. But poor direction and politicization under the Biden administration led to this reversal. Today, we are 100 days into Donald Trump's new term. What began last summer, Trump has fully embraced, branding it the path of common sense. He has taken steps that no predecessor dared to. Even Saudi Arabia, once a fierce oil rival, now aligns with Trump's doctrine, zero wars, maximum growth. A clear example is the oil price war that began in 2024. On one side, the U.S. Federal Reserve. On the other, Saudi Arabia. I once wrote that both wield swords, but the Saudi sword is longer. After 11 interest rate hikes and failure to control inflation, oil prices soared. But now under Trump, energy prices are falling, crude oil, gas, and refined products. This drop is already being felt in gas stations and will soon show up in electricity bills. The reason? Increased production. A simple solution that neither Biden nor his allies dared implement. Trump did, and the results are here. And they will only get better. I don't want to take up more of your time. I truly wish I could be with you today, but professional obligations kept me in Thessaloniki. I hope next time we'll all be together and that I'll be able to answer your questions in person. Thank you very much for the honor. Take care, all of you.